Welcome to another episode of the Meal Prep Monday podcast. I'm your host and founder of Prep Dish, Allison Schaaf. In today's episode, I am talking about what to do right now and how to prioritize the rest of the month of December. Before we get into today's episode, I have an email today to read from Lisa. So we recently did our customer survey. We do that once or twice a year where we send out a survey, just check in, hear how things are going with Prep Dish customers. And it was so much fun to read through all the responses, see which meal plans people are using, which no surprise, but the majority of you are using super fast plans, although all of the plans definitely are being used. I don't know, just a lot of great insights in reading those. But one of my favorite parts was just reading the personalized feedback and how Prep Dish is being used in your lives and impacting your lives. So anyway, today I'm going to read what Lisa had to say. She says, Prep Dish has changed my life for the better. I used to only cook the handful of things I knew how. Now I feel confident cooking new and interesting meals without compromising how healthy the food is. Lisa, thank you so much for sharing. I am glad to hear that Prep Dish has you cooking more interesting meals and, healthy food. I really like to just teach people how to make healthy food taste delicious. I think that's really the key to healthy eating, is making sure it's something you enjoy eating, right? So if you have not tried Prep Dish and would like to give it a try, we do have a special 2-week free trial for listeners of this podcast. It's prepdish.com/MPM, short for Meal Prep Monday. That's linked in the show notes there as well. Again, that's prepdish.com/MPM for that 2-week free trial of Prep Dish. Okay, so for today's episode, I know we are already into December. It's December 9th when this is airing, but I really felt like this episode might resonate with some of you because with Thanksgiving being so late this year, I just feel like December really snuck up on me. And so I sat down and did this about a week or two ago. And I thought, I think this exercise, even though it's December 9th, could really be helpful for some of you that are feeling overwhelmed. And it's a simple exercise, but for me, it was so effective in just reducing the anxiety and getting clear on what I want to prioritize for the month of December. So I'm going to kind of walk you through how I looked at it and then also the specifics of like what I decided to prioritize, maybe a few things I decided to cut. So in my household, we have 3 birthdays, 4 if you include Jesus. So lots of celebrations going on in December. And then we have also, for whatever reason, we got invited to a ton of kids' birthday parties. I think like 6 for the month of December. And the rest of the fall, we've on average gone to 1 birthday party a month. So it has not been that heavy. But for whatever reason, I guess all of the kids were born in December. And we actually don't do birthday parties. So Ivan, my oldest, is born in December. And we will do a family celebration and maybe an activity for him. But we do his friend birthday party in the summer. So we do the 6-month or half year celebration. And that has worked out so well. We've done it for at least 2 years now. And I plan to do the same for Tovin, who was also born in December. I just find that it makes the whole process a lot more enjoyable. Here in Texas, the weather's a lot better. So if you have a December birthday kid or your birthday's December, highly recommend the half birthday celebration. I had a few people kind of recommend that to me early on. And I'm so glad they did. It just worked out a lot better for us, especially Ivan being so close to Christmas. I feel like otherwise he doesn't get to fully celebrate him. So I kind of like that he gets to have that extra celebration in the summer. Okay, so back to the topic for today is, figuring out what is important for the month. So I find that if I don't sit down and write out a list of what actually is important to me for this month, I can get carried away, right? Like it's like in the moment you get overwhelmed. You're like, oh, shoot, I need to do this. And we're going to do sugar cookies and we're going to do the house and the this and the that. And it can become too much, right? Especially like leading up to if you celebrate Christmas or whatever you're, celebrating this month. If you are just kind of doing it in the moment, it can feel like you're not doing enough. But for me, I find if I write it out, I realize, okay, here's the things that are important to me. And what I did this year is I printed out a blank calendar for December. I wrote in all of the kind of dates of things that were already going on. And then from there, I just made a list. Would I like to do? What traditions would I like to continue on this December? So for me, one of those was doing a gingerbread house. Another one was decorating sugar cookies. And I think those are really kind of the only two. We go and buy a Christmas tree, so we've already done that, and we tied that in with going to a local like tree lighting ceremony that was really cool. But yeah, and then also, I mapped out the birthdays and things I would like to do for our Christmas traditions, different services I wanted to attend at church and made sure those were blocked out. So I kind of blocked all of those out. And then I looked and I said, okay, well, gingerbread house, when can we fit that in? And we actually, as this is airing, I think we've already done the gingerbread house. So that was kind of scheduled earlier in December. The sugar cookies were scheduled a few days before Christmas. So I just kind of filled in the days when it made sense and when I knew it wouldn't be too much and that I could buy the groceries in advance and know, oh, I'm doing sugar cookies this week. Let me buy the ingredients. Let me make the cookies the day before, decorate the next day, kind of having all of that mapped out so that it's happening very intentionally and it's not last minute, oh my goodness, Christmas is in 2 days. We've got to do this. And then also looking at it and saying, maybe there's not time for some of this. So for example, some years there's this really cool train ride. It's so much fun for the kids, but it's an hour and a half away. And by the time I looked, all of the times, like none of the times worked great with the baby's nap schedule. And so I just decided, you know what, this year we're going to cut the train. I love that. I want that to potentially be part of our tradition in the future. But I think for this year, it looked like that was just going to push us over the edge in terms of activities. And so I think just kind of looking and figuring out what is realistic. The other thing that I prioritized for this month, which is unusual for us, is a planning day for me and Brooke. And I'd have to go back. I'm pretty sure I've done an episode kind of dedicated to this, but Brooke and I have a tradition of usually it's the weekend after Thanksgiving. We go for a weekend and spend a few days. And we have a whole kind of schedule that we follow, but it's a family planning is what we call it. But it's really looking at the goals from the year before and then planning out what our kind of future goals are for us as a family, going through different categories. We also, on the last day, look at the calendar, block out dates for, any trips or things that we're wanting to prioritize in the new year. And just having that kind of intentional time to come together as a couple and plan out our next year. It's worked really well for us in the past. Now, in the past, my mom would always come and stay with the kids. So we've kind of had to figure out how to navigate having childcare and getting away, but we're coming up with a plan so that we can do that. Since we're not traveling this year over the holidays, we're going to do that even though it's a bit later in the year than usual. I find the weekend after Thanksgiving is really ideal for that. But if that's something you're wanting to do, January is also a good time. You can do that really any time of the year, but that has been something that's really helped us get on the same page and plan out the upcoming year and make sure we're fitting in what's important to us and we're kind of coming together with all of that. So that's another thing that we did try and make sure that is on the calendar for December. So if you're listening to this, I would encourage you, even if you've already kind of have an idea of your December, if you are feeling any sort of overwhelm, put pen to paper, print out a blank December calendar. You can just Google and find a sheet of a December calendar, write out what really is important to you, and don't be afraid to cut things. Don't be afraid to say no. You've got to figure out which items are important and prioritize those and then say no to the rest. That way you don't go into the month feeling like it's out of control and it's running away from you, but instead, making sure you're just intentionally fitting in those traditions that are really important to you. Oh, and one other final tip, I'm reading through my notes that I made before this episode. You might also want to, as you print out that calendar, pick out some meal prep days. What days are you going to fit in your meal prep? I think cooking just, your regular family meals can sometimes get overlooked during the holidays with all the parties and this and that. But I find this time of year, it's even more important to have those regular, healthy, home-cooked family meals on those days when you're not out and going to events or parties, just to really kind of maintain some sort of homeostasis at home and keep your food intake healthier when you're at home. So don't let this be a month where it's like, oh, well, I have events, so I'm not going to make meals. I think this is a month to really hone in on making sure that you have those days picked out of doing the meal prep and buying the groceries, doing all that, and making sure that in between all of the events, and even if you have an event, I find it's easier to just eat at home, go to the event, and then that way I can like have a few treats or whatever it is, but I'm not needing to like put together a whole meal while I'm there. So I really do like to just continue our family meals at home, even through the holidays and a season that can be otherwise a little hectic. So that is all I have for today. A reminder that if you want to try out the Prep Dish meal plans, I do have that 2-week free trial for listeners of this podcast at prepdish.com/MPM. If you know of someone who would be a good fit for our meal plans, I would just so appreciate it if you could share either that special 2-week free trial, share our podcast. It just really, that's how we grow here at Prep Dish, is through your referrals. And so I appreciate those all the time. And yeah, that's all I have for this week. I will be back again next week with another episode.